I am Chester Dunham, and this is the Dunham Report, a marketplace of ideas, of information for labor, civil rights, and other issues of social justice. As I said to you, the viewing audience, on a few of our shows now that we are switching over, we're going over to YouTube and everything else because of the reason that we decide now that we want everybody to see us. And so now we are kind of venturing out where we will be able to, you all who are listening and tuning in, and we will continue to grow together. But we do have valuable information and a good show for you tonight. Tonight we have my co-host is with us, and that is none other than Mr. Wesley Crenshaw. And then we have a guest with us tonight, and he's been on with us before, but he is a dynamic fighter from my home down in Glenn County down the way, and that's none other than the Reverend Zack Lyde. And Zack Crenshaw, and he can tell you himself, both of us are delighted to have you on the show with us tonight because we definitely want to talk about a great deal of things that we've been involved with and doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, and we are going to stretch out and continue doing it, and we want to share this information with the viewing audience. Wes, glad to see you tonight, man.
Glad to be back. It's been a while, but I'm back now.
Okay, and we will share this information with you all later because I just came back from a national conference in Phoenix, Arizona with the A. Philip Randolph Institute. And another thing is that real soon, within another week or so, that we will start showing you information and things that happen at the conference, something that you will definitely want to see and be involved in some of the things that we are talking about. But one of the main things that we want to kick off tonight to talk about, because it's hot on the press, and that's none other than when I was checking television and the news and the paper, and this was coming up for a good while. And now I think the first case, a couple of them that, starting out and went to the court yesterday. And the situation here is our president of the United States, and this is some of his team, just a portion of them that went to court on yesterday. One of them is his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, former personal lawyer of President Trump. And he was in court in New York, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. You're very much correct.
And then the other court case took place, and that was Paul Manafort, former campaign manager of President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Now, none of them are with him now with his team, like a lot of other ones who've been on his team are not with him. But it was interesting of the information that took place yesterday in court. And I want to just share with you a little bit of what some of the things that the newspaper had. And that was, they said, Michael Cohen, former personal lawyer to President Trump, leave federal court after reaching a plea agreement in New York on Tuesday. It said he pleaded guilty Tuesday to campaign finance violation and other charges, saying that Trump direct him to arrange the payment of hush money. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The paper went further because they had all stuff all over the paper. The And they talk about this. He shared this information in the paper, which it was in the court about the porn star, Stormy Daniels. Her name is, I think, and a
That's her
former
name. That's her name.
Playboy model.
Big two.
In a sense, they paid both of them off to
Be quiet.
to keep quiet. Now, one of the key things that interests me the more I read about this thing is that here's a situation where he didn't mention and name of Trump. It's real cool there. He didn't mention name. He mentioned, and that will be coming back in another testimony, another thing with the courts or whatever. But anyway, what he did was said, the campaign, in other words, the person who was running for office, he said, the candidate. In that way, and then he mentioned the young lady, the former stars, and then the former Playboy model. He mentioned those names and the amount of money. He mentioned the 130,000 and then 150. He mentioned all of those things. But what Cohen was saying that he was, other words, who he was working for. He didn't call name, but his thing was to make sure that, as you said, Wes, hush money, and pay them off to get through with it. But then it didn't happen that way. So let's talk a little bit about that. Either one of you all can start out, but it's a lot of things that was in the paper, and we will continue looking at this, and you, the viewing audience, will be seeing this kind of stuff. So we're going to just talk a little bit about it. Zach, you want to start off?
I certainly would love to start off. First, I'd like to tell you how honored I am to be on the Dunham Report, and it's glad to be back with you, Mr. Crenshaw. And
Thank you.
always good to be in the presence of A. Philip Randolph's president here in the community.
Zach, let me say this right here before you get into that.
Sure.
Because I had it jotted down. It's pretty cool because they had an unnamed candidate to influence the election. Go ahead.
They call him Individual One.
Individual.
Yes,
Okay.
and Individual One undoubtedly is the crime boss that we have for President of the United States of America. 8 charges was leveled against Manafort. And
Let's talk about
18 charges.
Manafort. Yeah, let's talk about Cohen first.
Okay,
That's
Michael
how we get into
Cohen.
it, yeah.
Mr. Cohen said he'd take a bullet before he would turn evidence against the president. He comes from that tradition of the Cohens who worked with that great Mr. Richard Nixon. Way back in the day, they come from being rugged New York individualists who fix things. And so Michael was the fixer for the president and proclaimed that he would never, ever, ever turn state's evidence against his great man of vision, the President of the United States of America. But yesterday, he broke ground. He ran for higher ground. He wanted to make sure that what he was facing, those 8 counts that he pleaded guilty to. This boy was so deep into corruption, and all of that bad talk he had turned into what the president really ended up calling him a rat. Ended up calling him the kind of language that the mafia used in New York City. Because I think that's what the president really marks himself after, is being a crime boss. I think that he thinks that the law has nothing to do with him. He makes the law, he breaks the law, And that's what he had Mr. Coyne doing, and he thought Mr. Coyne was going to hold out. But he broke and run when they looked at all that prison time that he was going to get. And that happens to a lot of little young fellas in our community. They walk around talking how bad they are and how tough they are, and the next thing you know, they done ratted somebody out because they want to get, instead of getting 10 years, they looking for
10 months.
10 months, and they end up getting 5 years, and now we got the 2.5 million people in prison that you are interested in their reentry, Mr. But Michael Coyne broke and ran like he was a sprinter.
Well, you know what? When I look at what Michael Coyne did, I think about what's the Elliot Ness used to try to get to. What's the boy in Chicago? The big Chicago gangster that Elliot Ness is always trying to get. Capone?
Yeah, Capone.
Yeah,
Mr. Al Capone.
Yeah, that's what I think about when I think, when I see what's going on TV there. I figured out the president is Al Capone, and then there was his close boy, the guy that used to carry the switchblade. What's his name? That reminded me of Cohen. So I got them all named out. Talk about, but my thing is, this is nothing but a crime family boss that's running.
That's right.
Running the government. That's all.
That's
and you know what? People wonder why the Republicans are not doing anything about it. They know better that they can have their kids' hand or head in their hands if they mess around here. Because I think that there's some danger there to a lot of people.
Well, I think that what happens is a lot of them got rich being crooks. two of the boys that endorsed.
I know you talking about
the president. They were indicted this week.
Duncan Hunter, and I think another one is called
Duncan Hunter, and that boy from up there in New York. Okay.
Yeah. He's the one who's inside of trading. Yeah.
Right. He was the first one that they indicted this week. But don't forget now, one of the things that happened, and the Bible is clear on it. The Bible talks about betrayal. The Bible says, and Jesus is working with it, he says, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, one of you shall betray me." So I want to make it clear, when he made that statement, wasn't no white folk around the table. And so what I want to do is make sure that we look at the black folk that will rat on you too. Okay?
All right.
One of them that will rat on you that I know of that was famous was the great Frank Lucas from out of New York City. I know y'all saw American Gangster.
Yeah, I can't remember it, but
yeah, well, Mr. Frank Lucas was played by Denzel Washington in the movie, and Frank broke and ran and told on everybody. The difference with Frank, though, is he did what Mike did. Mike Coyne ratted on the authorities. That's exactly what Frank Lucas did. He ratted on the police.
Well, what you think about the response from the president? He was teed and he was teed. So he didn't give good marks or nothing to Coyne. So I know it's a knockdown, drag out. And you know, Reverend Al came on his show today, and he was invited to one of those things. For a matter of fact, just this week, he had a chance to talk with Coyne.
Whoa.
Yeah,
okay.
And
he did talk to Coyne.
He talked with him.
Okay.
And some of these conversations came up.
Okay.
And about what's happening there, and even about the name, because and that's a strategy-wise or something. I think about the name wasn't called, but anybody with common sense knew who it was.
Absolutely.
He was talking about it and this and that. However, because I think he and his lawyers and stuff, when they sit down and went through this thing, I guess, however, they would testify on whatever they had to say. They would strategize and arrange these things to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed and everything is done the proper way. Because it's going to be a knockdown, drag out situation. Now, but all of this is saying that the Mullen team, which is a good team, that all of these things happening now is just strengthening what they are doing, and other ones going to be coming in, testifying and going to court and this sort of thing. So they, what you call them, said when he left on yesterday, which was Cohen's, that he looked out of the window or something like that, because they said he was shaky and a little nervous, and he was released on a $500,000 bond.
Oh, I think it was more than that.
I think it's 500,000.
Okay, 500,000.
Yeah, which is $500,000.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
We could use that in the black community right now.
And so far,
who are you gonna bail out?
Yeah, right. And so let's go into the situation and talk about Paul Manafort, which is his former campaign manager, etc. And the paper stated there that when he exited from the federal court in Washington, D.C. after being convicted on 8 of 18 counts.
That's right.
Against him. And so the 8, and that was mail fraud and some other things, and the paper stated when the juror, when they told him yesterday or something, that the judge declared a mistrial on 10 of the other counts. In other words, the jury deadlocked on 10. So the judge just deal a miscount on those at the present time, because this thing is still got to come back December the 12th. But the jury found him guilty on tax and bank fraud, and these other things, which Crenshaw is a expert on that. And then they said when the clerk of court or something, when she read the information to him, or back to him, she was saying that the each one individually, as she would say, you're guilty on the 8 counts. Number 1, she read that and then say guilty. Then she'll go number 2, guilty.
How to run.
Number 3, guilty, and right on down to the 4, to the 8. And they said he stood there and he was cool. He had his hand folded and with the suit and stuff on, and he didn't flinch. Said, and when he got through, the president made a statement, and so he didn't indicate or didn't say anything against the president on this. So the president was saying that he was sorry it happened, but Mr. is a good man.
Well, good
man.
Good is relative.
Everything else. So that's the way it ended with that, and now he has to be back in court on December, I think they said December the 12th. And what y'all got to say about that?
First thing I'd like to say is that he was in a favorable court.
Yeah,
because the judge interjected some stuff that he shouldn't have been even allowed to say as a judge. That's why Manafort's lawyer came out and said he got a fair trial. He got more than a fair trial. He got a confused trial, but the evidence was so overwhelming that the jury couldn't help but ignore what the judge said. Came back with 8 counts. Paul Manafort is going into another courtroom, but this one is not going to be in Virginia.
In Virginia, okay.
It's going to be in D.C. It's going to be with that brother who that brother who ain't like what the judge is that gave him such a favorable, outstanding trial in Virginia. In spite of that, he got convicted of 8 counts. The other 10 counts, they can, in fact, retry them if they want to, but it's not necessary, because right now he's looking at about maybe 20 years to go on these counts, and now he's finna go into, you said September what date?
12.
12th. That ain't much time
No.
for him to even. And guess what? He can't come out of jail. You know that they can't bail him out. He got to stay in jail until they take him over there to that other court. See, what he did was he messed around and tried to intimidate some witnesses. Lord have mercy.
And they won't let him out now.
They won't let him out now. So now he gonna get the understanding of what prison is before he go into that other court. So he probably gonna start doing what they said he wasn't gonna do. He probably gonna be rat number 2.
Well, what you think, or what you all think about the situation where this man had been getting so many people off by I guess he got a record on the what do you got, the executive, the president by pardoning
Executive orders. When they pardon. That's right.
Yeah, okay.
And the situation here that is so treacherous, we got to keep noticing these things because these people are so shrewd. Now, the December, like you said, is not long, the 12th.
That's right.
They got this guy, what his name, we talked about it earlier, up for Norman. In other words, he before the Senate now.
Kavanaugh.
Yeah, for the Supreme Court.
Right.
Which is overriding some of these other individuals who are on the court now, including Clarence Thomas.
Did you have to mention his name?
Got the, the person there. And this guy here, who they're talking about, is worse than the people they got on the court. You got 4 judges, 4 justices, that's for what's right, the way the court's supposed to be in their decision. And then you got 4 stacked the other way. That's a fact. You can look at what they rule on and everything else. That's the way the court is. And the 5th one, this one individual lingering, and that's his man. So if he get him there, that's why they need to have common sense. The Senate on both sides, I mean Republican and Democrat, because it's in you all hand, and they need to pay strict attention to make sure that this thing go down to the process, go the way it's supposed to go, to make sure no crook or nobody get on that court before time to get there. See, because they're looking at the midterm election. And if the midterm election shift the Senate and the House, but if it shift the Senate, who has control over the president nominee for the Supreme Court, can make altogether different in who goes on that court. So we got to watch that as and we got to continue talking about these things.
But see, I think
people got to continue talking about it. Got to continue talking about those people who represent us to make sure they make the right decision. And I'm talking now especially to those individual U.S. senators who serve us in Washington.
But you see, my thing is that I was very disappointed at the Supreme Court justice that waited until the end of the election to step down, to give Donald Trump another. What's the guy that was a swing vote there? That one is a swing vote.
Yeah.
But see, my thing is this. I think that the Supreme Court is going to be split. I think the conservatives now are the Koch brothers that put this guy on it, and there's other groups of people on there. So I think that we may have individuals that are more conservative than others. Than when they put this guy on the Supreme Court, we may find out that he doesn't get along very well with Thomas and with the Chief Justice and that group of people. I think that he may be more conservative than they think.
Well, one of the things that I have, this is what I hold out hope with. There was a Chief Justice that came from out of California that was a Ku Klux Klansman, and he was very, 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 very racist.
Mm-hmm.
But then something happened to his soul and to his mind, and all of a sudden he flipped. Now, I'm not saying that what we have is going to flip, But I'm going to tell you what makes folk flip. It is the actions of the community itself that gets the blunt of the decisions from the courts. One of the blunts that you have shown me this morning, just a few minutes ago, was the issue involving labor. They have turned on labor. Well, labor gonna turn back on them. Trust me. You ain't gonna have the kind of thing that Clarence Thomas, Kavanaugh, and the rest of them make decisions that harm those that are less fortunate, and the country won't have a reaction to it. So that's what I hold out hope for. But you're right. We need to make it clear that every person we can gets kicked out of their seat, including the 2 senators from Georgia.
Yes, absolutely right. The senators from Georgia, they don't do anything. All they do is whatever the president say, that's what they do.
That's it.
They don't. And you know what? I was really sort of bother me a lot is that, you know, you expect a few dogs in every pound to be bad, but you don't expect all the people to be that bad. I don't see anybody in the Republican Party right now, other than John McCain. I take my hat off to him, that seems to be able to talk about what's going on in Washington. Everybody, you get, what's the guy name? The guy in South Carolina. What's his
Graham.
Graham, and in Utah's guy, the guy in Utah, Orrin Hatch. You know,
talk with forked tongue.
That's right. That's exactly where I was going. You never know what side where they're going to end up. They're supposed to know what's going on, but you'll never know where they're going to end up. And so my thing is this will be a good time for us to get rid of our senators and our representatives. And I hope, God, that a lot of people go out and vote to do that, because we need to have some good people in the right place at the right time.
Okay, in my thing, I'm glad to hear y'all say these things, but I don't have that kind of faith.
Well, where is your faith?
Number one is this, the system.
Yes, sir.
When the framers,
yes, sir.
When the framers put this thing together, that three branches where the power would be equally, with each branch has a duty and responsibility to do. But now it has shift the power to the court, which will turn around and don't respect individual rights and privilege. They give that power to the president. President is there, and they're gonna, in this court that they got now, vote and support president decision or whatever he wants. It has been proven. You're talking about a few minutes, and that's what frightened me. We got an election coming up. Yes, we can vote people in and out. But the Supreme Court, our Lord, I wish they could have changed those rules some kind of way. They are there for life, and they don't care. Clarence Thomas,
your favorite person,
since he'd been there, he hadn't voted a right vote, I don't think, yet, on everything that he deals with. Scalia's is gone, but
they killed Scalia, you know.
The same way.
I think they killed
Kennedy, a person I had faith in him, that was there, and just the other day when he left the court, he left it with a deal, with a wrong deal, a money deal. So he turned his back on the people himself. Just the other day with the Supreme Court. Federal judges in the Supreme Court, they are too big. You can't move them, you can't do anything with them. And that's the frightening part about it. That's why I hope you all listen to this election coming up. Our savior is to vote these people who are not doing the right thing, vote them out of office.
And you know what I just want to say? Right now, the most important thing that we can do is that I sort of fault us brothers for not voting in larger numbers. Those of us, the sisters seem to be voting in large numbers. I wonder where the brothers are, because I do believe, when I talk to some brothers that I know are legitimate and can vote, their attitude is, well, maybe I'll vote, maybe I won't. or this is this. I don't know what we do to encourage the brothers to support the sisters in the vote.
Well, one of the things I would like to point out is, first of all, so we have the executive branch, so we have the legislative branch, and so we have the judicial branch. But there's a branch that is absolutely more powerful than all three of those branches put together. And it's the one that we own tonight. It is the media.
Okay.
Let me tell you what the media can do. What we did so long, that's why I had a problem with the old media as it existed, because it became a propaganda tool for the other three legs. But now they look like fools. So now they're trying to regain a position of integrity and dignity, because they were the ones that were absolutely responsible for the president getting in office the first place. He didn't spend no money.
No money, no advertising.
He was on the media every day. Every lie he told was followed up. They doing the same thing now. And what happens is the media has been made to look like fools. Here tonight, I am convinced that the media, such as the Dunham Report, the media that is going to be coming from, y'all might not remember something because I'm a little bit older than y'all. A fellow by the name of Sonny Boy. Y'all remember Sonny Boy?
Used to work with us?
Sonny Boy. No, Sonny Boy was a stick figure, a cartoon figure that was in the black community, that was in the black paper.
All right, I thought.
And black folk used to go and get the black paper like it was a Bible every day, because they had to take them spy glasses and put them on Sonny Boy to find the numbers. But you know how powerful the black media was because of that? It was absolutely extraordinarily powerful. What we did is we messed around and walked away from the media that comes from our own community. And that's what the Dunham Report has the power to do with other media that's coming up. And I can assure you, when the wake-up call is given to where we use the power of the First Amendment, unlike what the preachers are doing now, which is afraid to stand up to be counted and work on behalf of the betterment of the least of these. When we get back to the Dunham Report, when we get back to the three radio stations that Leonard Smalls have, when we get back to other media that's out there, guess what? We will bring about a major difference in our community. And I'm going to tell you what's happening. Don't fool yourself. White folk looking for the truth too. So if you put it out there as truth, guess what's going to happen? All of those folk who done been playing games with the truth, they're gonna walk from there to you, Dunham Report, to seek what you giving out here tonight and what we gonna be doing out there in activism in the community.
You know, I was just telling you, Chester, I was talking to you, baby, before we went on the air, about the people that I saw on Facebook last night dealing with the issues at New Hampstead High School. Alicia Blakely and D.G. Letty. Yes. You need to watch them. And I'm going to tell you guys did a really good thing in that video that other night. But what I'm saying is that that's a video that we probably don't know about, but it's very powerful. It gave information to the community about how they were really treating our kids and who's responsible for what's going on there. So there are a lot of media going on that people don't know about, but just like you say, they're letting a lot of things get loose in the community that we don't know about.
We have started in Brunswick two major things. One, we call it the Coalition Values Team Think Tank. And the reason we did that is because we was encouraged by Brother Dunham and his friends out of Atlanta with a think tank that they have coming out of Atlanta. But we have to have our own in our community because of three things that's been missing in our political arena. Message, our message. We can't keep going to this message that says red state, blue state. That ain't got nothing to do with the community I come from. That is a message that is lacking in substance, and it will not bring about the desire by the people in my community to go to the polls. The other thing we put in place is a news magazine that deal with the notion of our roots. We sing in our churches a song saying we are like a tree planted by the rivers of water, and we can't be moved. But if you ain't got no roots, I can tell you, water will wash you and the tree away. So it's time for us to go back to our roots in order for us to be able to talk about labor and the struggle that labor put forward. The only reason that you getting these rulings in the Supreme Court now is because the system that dealt with organized labor had gotten to be extremely good based on A. Philip Randolph and others. We walked away from that kind of value system, so therefore we're wavering in the wind.
One thing is that we still, and one of the most important thing there is with these elections and things coming up that is missing, and we got to drill it into people, and that's political education.
Yes, sir.
Political education.
Yes, sir, brother.
We talking about states and red and blue, and I'm going to go into that. We got to, where people would understand, to turn a state around and make it a different state. You've got to deal with this political arena.
That's correct. You do.
You cannot get around that.
I'll agree.
So now this is 2016 map primary coming up before the election. I think this map here, this thing was printed around about the October, November or something.
Says July.
Or July. All right. Very good. So if you notice here, and the people who are looking, we can see this map here, and the map itself have more color reds all over this map. Now let's look at this thing, because we got an election coming up. We now still talking about political education. Most states, as we look, like Zach said, that we do the study these things and go out there and make sure the professional go out there and deal with those figures. They do a good job. Give it back to us, but they do a good job. Number one is most states, if you go back into history, most of your states are majority states, which is, if you count the numbers, most states in the whole United States are, percentage-wise, it's more people who call themselves Democrat than Republican.
Yes.
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
But what's happening in these states now, which turn it to red, because the minority is outvoting the majority, while the majority is sitting home
you preaching now.
grumbling and fussing.
You preaching now, brother.
And all of this kind of thing.
That's right.
I tell you, and I'm going to go back to this, but I will stop for a moment, because Crenshaw and I live here in Savannah. Now listen to us, listen to me good. We just had an election just recently, a primary, and we just had a runoff, and we had to go back, but it was a small election dealing with Board of Education.
Yeah.
The election are important, and we're thinking that education is one of the most important elections there is. Now here's a situation where everybody crowded up and wanted to run for the president of the school board. We had 5 people, candidates, who were running for the president of the school board. We had 3 African Americans and 2 white. What happened is that it was a runoff. The one lead person who was on the board, who's the president now, the lead person had 13,000 and some odd votes.
Okay.
I count them, I kept up with it. The person who came second to him, because the other person didn't get enough, the percentage they had to have a runoff.
Right.
So now these are two black females.
Okay.
Now you listen good, two black females. Now if they're concerned about the children, about the school system, and not themselves, and the people who vote for them, who voting for everybody with education, if they pay attention, they will be trying to get somebody in there to represent them who they think is good. What happened in this case? The two females, they had high amount of vote. They had about 12,000 and something vote, close to the 13,000, close. The person who won out with the runoff had 6,900 and something and 97 vote, I think she had. A fraction from 7,000.
Okay.
The other one had 6,000 or something, close. And then the other people had other amount, which would have totaled more than the amount that the lead person had. So what happened is that with the runoff, this is talking about political education, the runoff, everybody talking about, I said, y'all better go back to the poll and vote. In this runoff, he'll tell you, we got the numbers. The lead person he dropped off some. He got 11,000 and something, close to 12,000. The second person, who should have picked up
all the other votes,
other votes from other people, no matter whether you're white, black, Democrat, Republican, male, female, it doesn't matter. You're trying to make sure that you get a good representative on the school board.
Right. That's right.
Not a board that is controlled by somebody who is controlled by a different organization from the power structure.
Right.
And that's what's happening here now. So what they did was, on the other side, this lady, the other female, got 6,700 and something vote. In other words, she dropped off 300 people didn't come back to the poll who supported her in the first place, in the primary.
Right.
And the other ones who had all those other votes for these other people, they sit their tail home and didn't come out and vote at all. You see what I'm saying? So now we're talking about races and we're talking about election. And that's what's happened. So we go back to these states in the upcoming midterm election, because it has proven that's where we lost most of our election in midterm. Presidential election, this and that, bring the people out. Midterm is we go back and we lose the fight. So now what they're doing throughout the United States, because but now including, we're going to be talking about what in this our area too, but including throughout the United States, the conference I just came from, what they're doing now is going all out. And black female, we're going to talk about that on the next show before we leave, but they are leading the way. Black females are leading the way in the political arena. We got the data, we got the stats to prove what's going on throughout the United States. So therefore, in this situation here, let's just look at some of these states here, then we can, I'm gonna stop talking so much, but what I would like to say is this, that these states here, and it's easily on these states here and the numbers, how we can change this thing is by voting. And I just had the thing down there, Zach, had them numbered and everything else. But I'll just go by this. Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia. And these are states could easily, and we're hoping to come and make them blue state, a state that represent the people, the majority of the working people. That's what we're talking about. We ain't talking about no party, this and that. Talking about people who working for a living, who catching the devil out there. That's what all we're looking for. Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, on Missouri, on North and South Carolina, which is running way behind, but they should be leading the way. North and South Carolina, again, who should be leading the way, but you all are not. Especially South Carolina, you're lagging way behind. Ohio, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, another state that we should have, with all the Hispanics and all these other people catching hell about the wall and the fence and this and that, and they're still playing around and not voting and outnumbering these folks. In West Virginia, easily, we can win this thing as a whole and turn the power and things back into the hands of the people and let the people out there represent the people and not themselves or corporation or big business or one of those other kind of things. I'm gonna stop and let you all talk.
Self-centeredness
All right.
is the chief culprit in all of this. Several years ago in the state of Georgia, it could have turned blue. And it could have turned blue with just a simple action dealing with Jason Carter, Michelle Nunn, 5 women coming out of the Atlanta area.
That's right.
That if they'd have used the kind of strategy you talking about,
That's right.
and got away from self-centeredness and got down in the weeds with the working class folk, then what happened to Georgia, we wouldn't be talking about turning it blue now. It would have been blue.
All right.
The reason we're talking about turning it blue is because what we have not convinced folk of what politics is. Politics is who gets what, when, and how they get it. And what has actually happened to us is that we have put people in that we have not held accountable to the community that they say they represent. I'm going to give you an example. In Glenn County, these are some slicksters in Glenn. Y'all think y'all got some slicksters in Chatham County or Atlanta. Y'all need to come down and learn some stuff about these slicksters in Glenn. Glenn decided on the school board, for an example, what they would do is remove, they got 5 districts in the county.
Okay.
They decided that and they had 2 representatives from each district, which meant that there would be 10 people on the Board of Education. Well, slicksters decided that you know, if you got 2 coming on from each district, that's the possibility of having 4 black folk on the Board of Education. So let's say this. Let's make it clear that what they doing with them 10 people is they arguing too much. And since they arguing too much, what we need to do is reduce the size from 10 to 7. Meaning that what would end up happening is there would not be but 1 black person on the Board of Education. But here is the kicker. Then we're going to have 2 at-large seats. That would mean that you put that 1 black person with 2 white outsiders and a brown insider. That means that anything that they do, you cannot have a voice in. But I'm going to give you a change that happened, why we can't talk about just race. They did the same thing in the county. 1 black person represents the district in the county. And so they decided to raise the ad valorem taxes. 3 people, 3 Republicans on one side, 3 Republicans on another side, and the brother is a Democrat. So these 3 people don't want to raise the ad valorem taxes. These 3 people do. Which way you think that the brother voted? Because he had all of the power. The brother had all of the power. I wish to God I had that kind of power just one day. If y'all would let me in your church so I could preach, just one church, I would have all the power in the pulpit. This boy had all the power. Guess which way he voted?
Raise that.
Now you know what that meant to the average working person in his district?
So
we're going to lose property.
So he voted against the workers.
40% increase against the workers.
See, and this is what
Accountability, my brothers.
we're talking about. One of the main things that Crenshaw and I, we talk about this all the time. This is one of the main things we talk about. It doesn't, listen to, and you hearing it on the Dunham Report, you hearing me saying this right here now. It doesn't matter whether you're white
That's
or
right.
black.
That's right.
It doesn't matter whether you're male or female. Your voting record, the way you
Your
vote,
what?
the way you vote,
That's
the
right.
way you support the people,
That's
the
right.
working people, the small people who
That's correct.
need the help, not big business and corporation and this kind of stuff. That's what you need.
That's correct.
I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican, this or that. You need, and you see, the Republican, the problem is this. You said earlier, I can pick up, look at a report card yesterday, talked to DC yesterday, and just pick up a report card. And if I can, and here go, I'm looking at the record of everybody who was in Congress, and I'm talking about now on the national scale.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at 435 congressmen
That's right.
throughout the United States
That's right.
and 100 senators.
That's right.
Looking at their record. And I can close my eyes or whatever. Because you can look and said issues for working people, for people who need help, who need health care,
They need what?
insurance, who need health care,
Yes,
who
sir.
need insurance, who need just poor people trying to make it.
Yes, sir.
Make ends meet.
If you can look there and see the numbers and see how they vote, the Republican as a whole, very few Republicans, we don't have them like it used to be, as a whole, their percentage is voting percentage, and I can show it to you, their voting percentage is 0.
What it is?
Or 0 or 5 or 10, and if you might get one every now and then, 15% or something like that, or 20% for issues. Now that's the reason why.
Yes, sir.
Over if you go on the other side, the Democrat, they got high numbers.
That's right.
High numbers, high numbers. And the key thing is another thing that happens. You look at a candidate in a particular on district that they represent that district, and you look at different counties in that district, but it's a district, and you look at that, and if your district is, mixed up in different ways, but if that person, if the people in that district, whether you're white, black, I don't care who you are, tell that person, we need you to vote for this and that. And if that person follows the lead and do that, it'll be all right, but they don't do it. But in the voters, the people don't pressure them to do these things. And that's what's happening out there now. They don't know the true education behind these people and how they vote. They just see them when they come and smile and handshake and this and that, and that's it. And then you were talking a few minutes ago, but color. You look at the situation where so many weak-minded black folks.
Well,
Weak. I can't stand one of them. I mean, be a man, be a woman or whatever, and vote for the issues that represent the people. That's all I talk about.
you know, one of the
That's all
things
I
you
think.
mentioned here today just a few minutes ago, you said health care.
Yes.
I don't care who you are. Every preacher in this town and all over the state of Georgia, if they didn't have sense enough to do nothing
I'm
else,
telling you.
they should have come out, because Jesus instituted universal health care. When that woman crawled to the hem of his garment, touched it, and was made whole, and didn't have to pay a dime for health care.
It's free.
Health care ought to be a right. It ought to be every preacher and every female preacher, every male preacher in the world need to stand up for health care in the state of Georgia, just that one issue alone, because every child needs to have health care. Every person, black or white, needs to have health care. And the way they took this mess in the state of Georgia, look at what the premiums did. It hit working class people so hard that they closing hospitals in rural areas.
That's right.
I mean, they ain't got no doctors that's going
right.
in there. We done lost our minds.
I'm telling you.
And it's time for us to make the preachers accountable for what do you stand for and why you ain't out there in the street and in the community doing your job to let these folk know that what you got to do is stand up if you don't do nothing else but for health care. We will give you the benefit of the doubt if you don't want to deal with guns. Because I know you're scared about that. If you don't want to deal with voting rights, we know you're scared about that. You done let that intimidate you so much that you say there ought not to be no politics in the church. That's the biggest lie that has ever been told. The church is politics. And it's time for us to look at them and say, fool, come out the pulpit, go in the street, and tell all these folk we want to have health care for you.
And they will listen to them too.
They would now?
They'll listen to
them.
You sound like the Reverend Barber.
Oh my God! You just named my hero.
Yes, indeed. Now you talking.
You just named my hero.
Like the Reverend Barber.
But you just came up with one of the very important points. That's all it will take. That's all it will take. And I hate to say it, but they just don't have no balls. That's all.
You call it courage.
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah,
You know, one of the things I like to emphasize, because it has gotten to that now. Besides the self-centeredness, taking these folk strutting around in their little cars and their little suits and all of that. What it's going to really, really take is three things: courage, loyalty, and commitment. And I can assure you, I can teach every preacher alive. If you ain't got no courage, you ain't got no faith. If you ain't got no faith, you ain't got no God. All of that foolishness that you doing, hiding and slipping and sliding and what that song they said, slipping and sliding, people and hiding, been told a long time ago.
Because we're gonna end now, but I'm gonna end with this statement coming from Randolph on this show.
Yes, sir.
And then we're gonna go on another show.
Our man.
But Randolph told the people, and they use it all the time, he said, at the banquet table of nature, there are no reserve seats.
Good God Almighty.
One gets what one can take, and one keeps what one can hold. If you can't take anything, you wouldn't get anything. And the only way you're going to get it is by things that we are talking about tonight, organization.
That's correct.
Coming together,
That's correct.
Organization. You can't take this hand like this and do nothing. But when you bring that hand together and make that fist, you can do something. And that's what we are talking about. And that's what we're going to leave with you, the viewing audience on this show, about come together and the midterm election. And we're going to be talking about a lot of other things, because back and forth, these are things that we're going to be talking about. Thank you. See you next time.